Hello, I'm John Featherston, the founder and CEO of RISMedia. Welcome to RISMedia's Industry Briefings. Today, Hoby Hanna, the CEO of Howard Hanna Real Estate, will be joining me to discuss growth, consolidation, and the future of real estate. Before we begin, please check your calendars and make sure you have reserved September 30th to October 2nd to join me and 400 other brokerage and executives throughout the industry at the 38th Annual CEO and Leadership Exchange at the beautiful Fairmont Hotel in Washington, D.C. You'll be amazed at this year's incredible lineup of speakers, panelists, all addressing the most important issues facing your businesses today. Please scan the QR code for the complete agenda. By the way, we have added a special America's 250-year celebration, an evening at the Lincoln Memorial, the Vietnam and Korean War, the very first evening of the event. This will be a special networking tour. I look forward to seeing all of you there. So let's get started. I've had the pleasure of knowing Hoby Hanna for many, many years. The Hanna family is an iconic family in the annals of the real estate industry. They represent quality, innovation, and dedication to our industry and to home ownership. There's so much happening now. I was honored to have Hoby join us today to share with us some of his insights today on what's happening. Longevity, resilience, growth, an independent blueprint for a shifting market, especially with all the consolidation that's happening. So with that, discussing the key strategies that have facilitated his firm's steady growth and his trajectory for success, moving from its historic beginnings as a local independent to a current position as a regional powerhouse and an emerging role as a national player. Please welcome Hoby Hanna. In this exclusive presentation, Howard Hanna Real Estate CEO Hoby Hanna discusses the key strategies that have facilitated his firm's steady growth and trajectory, moving from its historic beginnings as a local independent to its current position as a regional powerhouse and emerging role as a real national player, a family-owned national player. Hoby will share the secrets of success of the brokerage, the expansion, the rapidly consolidated real estate industry, the landscape, and what it will take for brokerage leaders to really survive and thrive amid shifting dynamics. It's my pleasure to introduce Hoby Hanna, CEO of Howard Hanna Real Estate Services. Hoby, welcome.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, believe me. Hoby, Howard Hanna has grown to be the largest family-run independent firm in our country. And you've greatly expanded your reach geographically. A matter of fact, in the last few weeks, I believe you added South Carolina. And a few weeks before that, a month or two, you added New York City. You continue to expand. Let's talk about how your firm has managed not only to remain a stable force in the industry, but continue to grow and expand in this very difficult marketplace.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you, John. You're, just an icon of this industry. So thanks for doing this and the podcast and everything you do at RISMedia. But we've been fortunate with our growth. To answer that question, we've been aggressive and we've been focused, and it's been part of our overall strategy that started in the early 2000s to grow regionally, and that region keeps expanding as we look at adjacencies of our family business. It is an industry we love, but where I'd say is we've been fortunate is that we've had a lot of great folks that have businesses, small, large, in terms of brokerage firms, that had come to us, hopefully with a degree of trust that they know that we are real estate people, that their asset, should they give us the opportunity to acquire it, that we're going to take care of it the way they did, as not only as an entrepreneur, but I always say that we're a family business is made up of family businesses, and that includes companies that we've merged with and acquired and give a safe landing. But then every realtor, agent, employee that, this is a unique industry, which the salespeople in this business get up every day and have to earn their keep. It's not a salary position. It's not employees. It's it's a challenge for many of them. So we try to think of that just like ourselves as a family, how we've thought about how we can grow, but doing it with others. So that's what's helped us is that, and then we've had a lot of great leadership step in and take the reins. So as you grow from what was a Pittsburgh company and expand into 15 states and multiple markets, you have to have a lot of people that aren't family, that at least not by blood, but our extended family members, in terms of leading and growing and staying focused to success.
Well, I happen to know a lot of your team, and yeah, it's grown significantly over the years, and obviously, as you've expanded out, um, there are many that are not blood members of the Hanna family, but they truly have been with you for a long time. In this intense period of consolidation that we're in right now, not every deal, not every acquisition or merger is anywhere near the scope of Real and Remax or Compass and Anywhere or EXP and their acquisition of James Wiggins Company. Okay, those are all significant acquisitions and mergers. Your company, though, has successfully merged with and acquired over the years some incredible organizations. And some of our audience goes back and remembers the days of when you historically acquired Smythe Kramer in 2003. Um, Back then, that was a really historic acquisition. And then that followed with a sequence of many other acquisitions, all the way up to the one I just mentioned in New York City. Most of those organizations that you've acquired, the Rands, the Finns, and all of the others, many of those organizations, the leadership team, the owners, have stayed with your organization and have been with you and have been an integral part of your growth. Um, as that formula worked, um, has it worked with every company that you've acquired, or is it just some of the major ones where that has actually worked?
I would say the vast majority it's worked. We're not perfect. I guess I should back up. It's worked because I think a lot of those families, those companies, whether it be LB McKelvey's Smythe Kramer company, whether it be Merle Whitehead and Realty USA, the Finn LaCosta family with Coach, or the Rands, or the Alan Tates, the Jim Littons at FC Tucker. I mean, I can go on and on. A lot of those companies, we've grew up in the business with them at multiple levels. I mean, the fortunate thing, it's hard for me to believe that I've been doing this for like 30 years. But my kids remind me that my hair is gray now, and I'm not a 20-something-year-old. But I grew up, but our family business is approaching its 70th anniversary. This industry, as you know, made up of entrepreneurs that have relationships, whether it's coming to conferences like yours, whether it's the Realty Alliance, Leading RE, even, the mob brokers that are part of the Coldwell
Sure.
Banker. You network, you relate. The industry grew with, like, our company being in Pittsburgh, sharing with people from Cleveland and sharing people from Long Island, and ideas and processes, and getting to know them around, outside of business, really
Yeah.
sitting down.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a secret to our success, is that we've had a relationship with people. It's not just all about numbers. Sure, that matters, but it's having a vision of, why do you want to exit, and will you stay around? Now, that hasn't been perfect everywhere. There's some people that maybe we culturally grabbed, we reached, there wasn't the right mix, that we didn't define what the role would be for people in the future, or that somebody we found over the years, sometimes people say, oh yeah, I'm here and I'll stay on board to help you out. And 9 months, a year after the acquisition, there was a reason they decided to sell. They really wanted to sail off. They were done. And I'd rather people be clear with that. And so I think we spend a lot of time defining what do the next 5 years look like. And so that's where we've been fortunate, is that we're aligned with those partners, and hopefully it goes both ways. So
Yeah, I think from my vantage point, I see, and I knew all of those companies, and I every time there would be a new acquisition, I always felt there was a cultural fit um, from your organization to the organization that was coming in. There was a cultural fit. There was a management equilibrium, if you would, where your visions align. Okay, um, and they truly enjoyed the business. They want to be part of it going forward. And perhaps the founders of the organization wanted to exit, and the present leadership, whether it be a son or daughter, wanted to continue on, and they have. So when I think of where you've been, you really, I think it's important for our audience to understand that you weren't just the part of the family that said, "Oh, okay, it's Hoby's turn to step in and become and CEO." It didn't happen over a Christmas party or anything like that. And
You know our family.
I do, and but I do. I think it's important that our audience understands that the first real big acquisition was the one in Cleveland,
Mhm.
and you were instrumental at a very young age. You were instrumental in helping your dad and your aunts acquire the company, but not just acquire it. You were basically given the keys to the kingdom and said, "Make it work." Okay, that was a huge deal. Go back to those years and tell me how that changed you.
Oh, it incredibly changed me. I mean, going back to 2003, to put it in perspective, I think at the time, according to national rankings, Howard Hanna was the 24th largest brokerage firm in the country, really Pittsburgh predominant. And the Smythe Kramer Company, which many people who are watching may not know, and we've been around, was a 100-year-old company that year.
Oh,
That was the 23rd largest company in the country. So they were actually larger than us. And we posed it as a merger. Their leader, their entrepreneur, was a gentleman named LB McKelvey, their
sure.
owner. LB was a good friend of my dad's, but a hard charger that didn't have natural succession, and decided it was for health reasons and for other reasons it was time to do something. I actually we did the deal, and my aunts and my dad asked me to move to Cleveland. I told my wife it would be for 2 years. That was 2003, and we're still here in Cleveland. I'm in Cleveland today. We've raised our kids here. So our life changed in terms of, in Cleveland to Pittsburgh's 2 hours. It's not like it's
Yeah.
LA to New York, but it's, being a family business and all the other Hannas are in Pittsburgh, I came to Cleveland, which I thought was an assignment to integrate and be part of it. And that led through some people deciding some early retirements, some growth opportunities that led to me to make my home here, and help grow the company that was a great company, Smythe Kramer, and be a big part of integration, because we had to learn as an organization that we were acquiring a larger business. We were acquiring a company that not much larger, but bigger, but had all the same infrastructures, had all the same traditions, had a history. So how do we integrate both? Which was a great learning that we hope we do as well today. And we take some humility that when we merge with a great company like FC Tucker or Alan Tate, we take some of the best ideas and not change them, but to bring them across the whole organization to benefit, because these are really great companies that had creative entrepreneurial ideas. Also to
But
realize,
you at the time,
yeah,
is setting the table here. The At the time, technology in 2003 was not where technology is today in 2026. Um, and as you call them, essential services now, okay, which are many people call them ancillary services. Part of your success in integrating those two companies and then a third company, which was Realty One,
yeah,
which was another masterful acquisition, that helped us. I think that helped set the stage for the growth of your whole family's organization. So, and you, as a young guy, was thrust into this position, where a significant portion of the family's empire was now based in Cleveland.
yeah.
Okay, um, so from that, it was it then that you thought, wow, we could expand much further than the greater Cleveland markets and Pittsburgh markets. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I think the Smythe acquisition, you're 100% right, gave us the ability to, how do we integrate? How do we learn? Could we operate in two cities, two major, NFL size cities with that have significant share as one brand? Because we then rebranded as Howard Hanna. You mentioned it was 2008, believe it or not, October of 2008 that we bought our largest competitor in Cleveland, Realty One.
Yeah.
We were really either really smart or really dumb, because if you put yourself in perspective of November 1st of 2008, the real estate market was sort of going quickly to hell in a handbasket.
Yes. Yeah.
And we, made a big bold move with a great company, then integrated. From we woke up one day and had 75 offices across Greater Cleveland, physical branch offices. That is a market that should hold about, and this was 2008, still hold about 30 offices, not 70. And so you had bricks and mortar, you had multiple managers, and we had a tough housing market. What we really saw is that's where we gained a confidence. We were able to integrate. Our essential service businesses were able to really grow, see value amongst the agents, keep even those competitive cultures together. And as we shifted around the Great Recession coming out, and really built not only in Cleveland but Pittsburgh and other markets, that I think gave us a confidence that we could, a lot of people can do great things when the cycle's going up. And a
Yeah.
lot of people can say, okay, well, I bought at the right time, sort of the blood in the streets aspect, and then grow. We were right in the midst of it. And like I said, we were either really lucky or, you know, but we worked really, really hard and dedicated to integrate that. And I think that did give us a confidence, John, that as 2010 came around, we looked as a family. We had a young generation. It's not just me. I've got my cousin, who's our
Yeah.
chief legal counsel, my brother, who runs the essential service groups, my sister, who's in relocation. We saw this next generation of family members, and one's coming along the horizon and said, can we continue this? Can we continue? Can we grow even more? So we said, yeah, but we're going to stick to a geography of adjacency. So, can we grow throughout to Columbus? Can we grow through Ohio, up into Michigan and Detroit? Can we go to upstate New York? And so opportunities began to come to us. We put ourselves out there that said, we think we could be an acquirer, an alternative choice to the ones that were there at the time, and finding those good culture businesses. So it's been discipline. We haven't had to grow for growth's sake. Like I say today, we don't have to do another deal. We don't have to grow. We can just focus. But we think there's an opportunity, and because of all the consolidation going on today, we think we're a strong alternative that understands the business for somebody who might be looking at in essence, their family business, their baby, and pass it to somebody they know can trust and continue to build it in the right direction.
Well, as we've seen just recently, since January, since Compass closed on the Anywhere acquisitions, my hat goes off to Robert Refkin, because Robert Refkin took a page out of your playbook, basically, and he and I talked about this, and he got on the road immediately and went out and started to meet all of the various brokerage owners, franchisees, etc., agents, and is on a treadmill right now, doing all of this, and that's hopefully that's working out for them, and eliminating spillage. But when you think about what you have done on every one of your acquisitions, okay, I think you masterfully have done this, and give our audience a little taste of what it's like after you've acquired a firm. When did you go and meet with the managers, meet with the agents? How much time? What are the questions they had? How did you relate to them to the point where your spillage has been almost non-existent?
Yeah, well, knock on wood. Um, I'm fortunate. I've got a lot of partners with the last name Hanna that are vested. So, I look at the online and the pictures of Robert, and, give him credit for, because a lot of people don't realize that's what this business is about, is trust and relationship. So we believe that part of it's a work hard, play hard atmosphere at Howard Hanna. And we've got a lot of people that put themselves out there to be with our realtors, to be on a social level, to just be in the office. Like so, to answer your question, we do a deal, and we're in the market, a bunch of us, especially for that first quarter following the market. And it's not just we're there with the managers, we're there to answer the questions, we're transparent, and to that technology, we can be doing Zoom calls and Teams meetings, but we also think that there's nothing better than the face-to-face. We bring some of our cultural things we bring to the table is our VIP Champions Clubs, which are 3 times a year, sort of a sales incentive, and we're in the midst of that right now. And sometimes we sit back and we take them to every market, and so this last 3 weeks we've had they're events, they're parties in a market to celebrate the successful agents for that first quarter coming out of the first quarter. And we divide and conquer. So it's like I'm spending time. My aunts and my dad, they're still going to the events, and my dad is the chief fun officer, as he calls himself. But it's going to the offices at the sales meetings on a Tuesday morning and just participating and popping into an office and sitting in the kitchen with agents or in the work breakout room and just asking about how the business is going and what's going on. I think that's something that the business has gotten away from, that I look at a lot of companies, and not to be critical, but the executives sort of are in that ivory tower.
Yep.
They're away. The report the accounting gives them says this should happen to this office or this. And I still think agents need a plan, they need guidance, they need trust, they need leadership, but they need relationship, and they need to be able to trust that you get it, that you get what's going on in their life, that a transaction, we all deal in a transaction that's highly complex, infrequently done by the consumer,
That's right.
and we don't get paid till it closes. And then we get referral business because we offer incredible service and follow up to that client. So, to know that that's what our realtors go through every day, and to support them with that and try to make the process easier, simpler, um, uh, that's the goal. And I think the only way you do it is really, you got to talk to realtors. You got to be one. It's
Yeah.
a long time. I mean, I started in sales, and that's how our whole family, like, you start in a sales level. I started in sales, sold real estate for 3 years before I got into management. And I miss those days, but it's been a long time, but I hearken back to them. I still like to go on listing appointments with our agents. I was on one this weekend because I get to hear the agent overcome the objections, and is our marketing system helping them achieve the goal. I still like to take a look at what's the strategy of how we're marketing. I have a call later today with one of our top agents in Pittsburgh on a friend of mine's home, and how we're putting the marketing plan together, and are we using the tools that we have. So you got to stay tuned with it, and I think that's what happens in our business sometimes, is management and leadership gets too far away from the street, and
Well, that's very true,
agents sense
because
it.
your agents, every agent that's out there and trying to be productive and improve their value, they're out there right now trying to reinvent themselves every single day,
Yeah.
trying to find the clients and secure their income going forward, because nothing is guaranteed. But articulating their value, being part of an organization that has the tools to support them, the infrastructure, the brand, that helps them attract and retain business is extremely important. They have to understand that they're not just working for an organization; they have an organization that's, I think, also working for them. In that symbiotic relationship, the ultimate success of your organization is not just based on the a home closing and getting a portion of the commission. It's your essential services. How successful has that been for the organization? How successful is it for the sales associates that are affiliated with your organization?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I should mention that when we talk about essential services, we refer to them that as they're essential to get the transaction closed. So
Mhm.
it's mortgage, title, and insurance. And you on every closing, you need two of those pieces.
Yep.
You need title work, and you need a closing and escrow, and then you need insurance. You need, mortgage. We have more cash buyers and everything else, but the way all three of those business lines were established, and I referenced that, the answer to the question is, we believe they're successful. We believe they help our agents differentiate themselves. But I should back up and say the reason that we are in those businesses and have been in those businesses since the 80s wasn't about, okay, well, here's new revenue streams we can create. There has to be a why. And the why for those businesses were that it was the early 80s. My grandfather, my dad, my aunts tried to build this business, and the savings and loans were having their crisis and their issues. So the availability of money was tighter, interest rates were high, and so we sort of said we've got to find a product, we've got to find an outlet. So we started a mortgage brokerage that led to a mortgage bank. Title was started because in those days, at least in Pittsburgh, you did roundtable closings. Everybody had to come downtown to the attorney's office, pay for parking. The process wasn't easy. And my dad and my aunts were like, wait a minute, we have all these branch offices. Why can't the consumer close here? And the title companies were like, well, that's not how we do it. So the response was, well, why can't we do it? Why can't, we have this great transaction, we take care of the client, and then we pass it off to an attorney. And if that experience, the last experience is the closing, and if it's not handled, that's the last thing you remember. So
Yeah.
the idea was, okay, let's start a title company. So the last thing that's remembered is our title experience, and it's not another company. It's we sort of in that space. It's not joint ventured, and then we added homeowners insurance, finding a way to bring a more affordable product to the whole ecosystem. But the reason we did that was to have the experience better for our clients, to make sure our agents' experience was better. We don't go out and try to capture business from competition. I know a lot of people do that. We don't. We're like a captive mortgage, title, and insurance company. We try to find product that's going to help our customers and therefore our internal customer, our agents, close more deals that we won't offer. So like one of our best products is what we call our buy before you sell mortgage. It really is a bridge loan for our clients, but we don't offer that to the XYZ competitor. Not that, we could make money off it, we could do it and get a mortgage closing, but that's part of what the advantage of being a Howard Hanna agent is and working with the Howard Hanna experience, or our cash guarantee mortgage, which, we'll underwrite a loan so that you're basically able to remove your mortgage contingency and make it cash. In a competitive nature where we're still are seeing a lot of cash offers, but we're standing behind that. But we don't offer that to our friends at other companies. It's just for the Howard Hanna agents' clients. And so I think that's what does differentiate us. I think a lot of our salespeople use it on the listing side. They say to a seller, the way I'm going to be able to differentiate is that we have a mortgage, title, and insurance company that's going to help you get closed, that's going to be focused, that's going to help the buyer overcome objections. So it's not just on a buy side. It actually, we think, helps differentiate us to the seller to list their home and bring it to market. So we're at about 30% capture rate in mortgage, which we think is pretty significant just on
Yeah.
our own captive business. And higher in title, and then insurance is like about 15%. So we see the consumer still choosing us. We think there's a lot of runway to improve. But it's been very successful, and we hope our agents see it as a value to them as well.
Well, it's a point of differentiation, and it's a point of differentiation as your organization continues to grow, both organically and then with acquisitions. I'm always interested and always amazed to sit with some of the newer members of your organization and the companies that have joined in the last few years, and hear their agents talk about the excitement they have to have that breadth of new services, and the way those services are integrated in to the new operation. It is a very different approach. Now, with difference, okay. Now you go back to that great acquisition in 2008 of the Realty One Group. Okay, Realty One. That, if you had a crystal ball, no one in their right mind would have ever acquired a company in 2008. There wasn't a listing to be had. Everyone was worried about short sales and foreclosures, et cetera, et cetera. We never thought we'd get out of that. It was a very difficult time, but you learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
But talk about difficult times and changing times. I don't think you and I and all of the people watching this and going to watch this over the next several weeks have ever experienced the times that we're experiencing right now. There's a confluence of all sorts of things challenging our industry right now. Now, hopefully, by the time this broadcast airs, the war in Iran will be over, and from my lips to God's ears, interest rates will drop to 1%. Um, but gasoline will go back to $1.99. Now, hopefully, by the time this is aired, the economy will be on a better footing going forward. However, um, which means hopefully more transactions for the second half of this year, more activity, more people getting involved with home ownership, which is what we all believe in. But looking at the changes our industry are undergoing right now, from your vantage point, which of these changes are positive and which are potentially harmful to our industry?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think, a perspective I have is just what you started with, John, was history. And looking back and just even growing up in the business and hearing stories of what the early 80s looked like with high interest rates. So then, and in the 90s, when I started selling real estate, rates were like 9%. I was just out of college in the early 90s. And I remember going to I didn't know that they were better like a year before I started selling. And I went to a national meeting, might have been your meeting with my dad, and a bunch of brokers were sitting around complaining about the market. I'm a brand new agent. I didn't know the market was bad. Uh, because it's all perspective. It's perspective of, somebody talks about 2008 and 9, and when an agent today would hear about that there was so much inventory, even though it wasn't selling, they would die for part of that inventory to come back today because of the shortage of inventory. We can go back and look at 3% interest rates. That wasn't a norm, and we all benefited from it. Nobody was as good as they thought they were in 2021, and nobody's as bad as they think they might be right now.
That's right.
Some of the macro situations we just have to deal with. We'll always have to deal with them. So I look at, like, when you talk about macro and historically, we sell something. We have a product which is shelter, which is, home ownership, which in this
Mhm.
country is a value. Uh, so I think that we just have to take more market sometimes, take more opportunity, be smarter, work faster, work harder. That's the tough thing about this business is because of the margins. It's not one where you just can be lucky and just ride the wave or just have a product it's a hard working business. Now, that being said, there are a lot of challenges and change. And what I also have perspective of history is looking and saying, I think for most of it, it's pretty good. I mean, you look at consolidation. This industry probably needs some consolidation. I don't know that I get all of it right now, but I think the industry does. And this, we've seen a lot of new different forces come into the business, bringing capital, which usually improves it. I mean, what most people on this podcast probably don't know, like Merrill Lynch was in the real estate business at one point in time. They owned brokerage firms. Then you had Prudential. I mean, and when those companies came in and they bought other companies and tried to consolidate, they also brought new professionalism, new training, new education, new technology. And sometimes that's great. Some of the water's warm, bring in some of that Wall Street money and capital money, and it may improve our industry as a whole. Some of the consolidation, like I said, is probably necessary. Just there's a low bar of entry to come into our industry, and that sometimes gives it a bad rap because people don't always run their business as a professional entity. It's like a side hustle, which
Yeah.
is crazy. But to answer, so I don't think technology or consolidation, I think we're going to have to evolve and see how we use that to help our business. It should streamline and make some things easier, simpler.
Hoby, I want to inject here for a second because you are a historian. Okay, I'm a historian, um, and it wasn't just Merrill Lynch; it was a whole slew of other organizations. You can go back to the early part of the 1910, 1920. 6 to 8% of all the homes being built in the United States at that time were bought and sold through the Sears catalog.
Yeah.
60 plus thousand homes were built in a factory, put on a railroad car, and shipped to the buyer's location, where carpenters and would put it together and put it up on the lot. And that was the advent of technology being transportation, the railroad, manufactured homes, etc. So many of those homes are still here today. That was consolidated out of our industry over a period of time. Here we are in the consolidation is not just on the brokerage front, but the consolidation that worries a lot of folks is what's happening on the technological side, and even with the MLSs. And you and I have had conversations about, I don't know anyone that is a member of more MLSs than I think you. Um,
Wow.
and and that sector is consolidating as we speak. Okay, and there have been mistakes made along the way of the history of the MLSs, good and bad. Um, but how we got here and where we're going is a question I have for you. Where are we going on that front that you think will be beneficial to not just your firm, but to the industry? And how fast could that happen?
Well, I mean, John, this is like the big controversial issue, and people take sound bites and statements in one line.
Mhm.
What I really think, and I've said this a couple of times, is that I think that without going too far down this path, because we don't want to do that, I've said it before, is I think that the MLSs overstepped, not all of them, but and maybe not intentionally, but overstepped to try to do too many things for all people, to sort of be a commodity, a utility, not just an infrastructure between brokerage firms. That's what it was designed, and that's what it needs to go back to. Technology has also replaced that. I don't think you need whatever it is, 500 and some MLSs across the country. I mean, it'd be great to start with, like, could we just start with one state MLS in each state, as opposed to having 50 or 40 or 20 in an individual state throughout the country? Um, could we get back to the data? And I'm a big believer in this. The data belongs to the broker. The data belongs to the individual. The whole ecosystem starts with listings.
Yeah,
The whole
absolutely.
ecosystem. And so I don't care what your brand is and who you are, but even if you're like a complete buyer agency focused company, you don't have anything to sell if the ecosystem doesn't start with the broker or the agent who sits at the kitchen table and gets a listing contract signed and wins the confidence of a seller to sell that house. Now, I don't think the market was ever supposed to be that you could take my listings and monetize them and build your business. It was, here's my listings, I'm sharing the data with you because you already have the loyalty of a buyer and you bring that buyer to the table. So I think that, when people talk about distribution of data, when brokers like myself do and where that goes, you know, I think that too many voices are thinking that means they automatically think it means private exclusive listings. It doesn't. It means don't take my data and build your business model. I mean, Zillow is a media company. They're not the only one. There's brokers that didn't pick on them, but they are a media company. They'll say they're a media company, but then they
Yeah.
became a broker to get the data to be able to sell the data either back to the listing agent or to other agents to build a business with 40% referral fees that they're not disclosing. It's not, that wasn't the intention. And it happened because technology advanced. And
That's
we're
right.
in another phase of technology advancing. You look at Google taking direct feeds. You look at the Anthropic and all the other AI being able to take things with who's the owner of that distribution and where it comes. And it's not to hide things from the consumer.
Yeah.
It's but to take this next phase and say the person who gets the listing that starts the ecosystem should have control with that seller's choice on where the data is going and where it's being distributed. I never quite get this idea that you're hiding. Like, I'm not saying I would ever do this, but if I only kept my listings at howardhanna.com,
Yeah.
okay, the whole world can find those listings. There's not a firewall that prohibits any consumer from going to howardhanna.com. If I have those listings and because they're at my website and I put the search engine or put it into Chat GPT or Claude and give them a direct feed on my listing, I'm the originating source. Somebody puts in, tell me 5 houses in Shaker Heights, Ohio. They're still going to find it. You put the address in on any of our listings, it's going to come up, but today it comes up on 20 different sites. Not
Yeah.
just at the origination, which is howardhanna.com. And all right, if you already have a buyer that works for xyz.com, God bless you, call them and we'll still show the house. It just, I get passionate about this because we think we lost our way. And I think the discussion that needs to take place without people or we will lose the businesses to the portals. We will lose everything to somebody else as opposed to brokerage firms and MLSs will be consolidated and they'll be out as well. If we don't relook at the playing field, if we don't look at the man-made rules and laws we put on ourselves,
That's right.
you know,
I think you're absolutely right.
and I also think it's great. I'll be, that I don't. I love to have disagreement with some of my friends in the industry that look at it because they built business models and they built other things. But that's the other. You look at the danger of the change in the industry, is that we as individual business owners should be looking individually as how we're going to run our business and making decisions that affect our business, and let the consumer, let the agent decide. When we use organized real estate, whether it be an MLS, when we weaponize the board of realtors, NAR, and we try to go into collective think, and then they as an organization say, you better do this. That's where the government takes a different look at our business. That's where plaintiffs' attorneys take a look at our business and say you're in collusion when you know us all well enough that we're not. We can't even collectively decide where to have lunch.
No, I listen. I totally agree with you. And you mentioned earlier in history, Merrill Lynch.
Mhm.
Well, the founder of Fine Homes International, which was Merrill Lynch, was a fellow by the name of Larry Biederman. Okay, Larry. I interviewed Larry the month they entered the real estate sector, and I'll never forget what Larry told me. He said, "John, I see an opportunity for Merrill Lynch to have yard signs throughout the entire uh, landscape," because his words, not mine, and this is a common phrase that was used throughout our entire industry and my history in the industry. He or she who controls the listings controls the inventory. Okay, controls the marketplace. Let me rephrase that. He or she that controls the inventory controls the marketplace. If you have the listings, you control it. And somehow it got to the point where we are today, where the guy or the gal that's the agent in the field that's meeting over a kitchen table to talk about the goals and objectives of home ownership for their client. Okay, getting that listing, agreeing to market their home, to get them the optimum price and in the time frame that they would like to have it done for their clients. They lost control of where how that listing, the data was owned. Well, it's all because we didn't understand the value of the data. In the late 90s. Others did.
Yes.
Okay. But now all of a sudden you mentioned Google. Okay. Google has a relationship with House Canary, very interesting company. So all of a sudden, Google, which really still owns the search categories and everything, especially in real estate, they're another opportunist looking at our industry. Okay. Is your company presently working with Google at all?
No, we're not. We are
Okay.
not. We have people talking to them, to House Canary, looking at that, looking how the model works, but presently we're not.
Well, tell us a little bit how you're working with OcuCell on and helping you manage this whole data situation.
Yeah, I mean, going again into the history books, but we all know or should remember Project Upstream, which
Yeah.
was another example where our industry, great idea, gets together and then too many chefs in the kitchen, I guess, or too many people with their own influences. But the concept of Upstream, which is what, 10 years old, was the idea that as looking with some forward-thinking brokers is where it started out of the Realty Alliance, is some men and women got together and said, we probably can't have like another national portal. Maybe that's fighting upstream a bit, but it is our data and how do we distribute it, and not having the MLS be the distributor. And so that's really what the core of Upstream was the ability for an input, add, edit, distribution method that would start at a broker, no matter who the broker was. And then the broker could then disseminate their data to their MLSs. I talk about, 85 MLSs that we take feeds from, and we have to like consolidate the feeds and we have a whole IT department around MLS data. There's a lot of big brokers do. But why can't we be the ones to feed the MLSs? What's the argument of Upstream? And it fizzled out for whatever reason. It just couldn't come to fruition. And we kept pushing for years. For the last 5 years, we would talk to people at ICE and Cotality and the different companies and say, well, you have the data, you have the technology. Why can't you build this for us? Why can't we go to some MLSs? And those providers weren't even interested at the time. They just said, this is how the world works. I guess, sometimes we don't like change. This is what it works, and let's not change it.
And
And we
sometimes
kept
change is forced on us.
Yes. And we kept pushing internally. The gentleman who works for us, Dan Riley, was the one who I kept pushing probably ad nauseum and said, there's got to be a solution that we could do our own input ad edit and begin our distribution. Because even to the point that having our own system that can feed our accounting system, our own system that can feed our essential services, that this is a new listing or there's a price change so that the open house flyer gets done automatically, or to send to our marketing solutions or send to quantums like Quantum and Express Docs that we do business with, for the agent to get their marketing materials ready. In the world we exist today, everything has to go in the MLS to get there. And then the MLS is already feeding to the IDXs and the portals and everywhere else. So an agent doesn't even prepared sometimes to so our logic was, how do we get input, ad edit, and distribution? And as our team looked, there were a couple people in the space. There's a handful of people trying to build that in the space.
Yep.
And the one that they found, who was OcuCell, who was a startup who we had met at different meetings, that says, this is our vision, that we'll work with the MLSs, but we want to work with the broker. We want to create this input, ad edit, distribution. We think the broker should have it. And we'll build the technology to take from one single entry to map it to multiple MLSs, which is a big piece,
Huge.
And so as we got to know them, we liked their logic around the space. They weren't trying to blow everything up and disrupt the space. They had an MLS background. And they had some gentlemen who'd been in the industry, like John Heighthouse, been around for a while, knew the industry, knew what it would take with MLSs. But so we said, okay, how do we partner? And their challenge was, they really were focused on trying to build out down the Eastern Seaboard with the large MLSs and partner there, where we benefit from that. But we also were like, we need to get this done in all of our markets. So we, after some time, decided to partner with them in a way. We don't own part of OcuCell. We're not an investor. We invested our own capital for them to build out the infrastructure for us in our MLSs, so that we could get first to market, so that we could build there, because they just didn't have the capacity. So this allowed our investment in them for our build out of what is OcuCell product we call Hanna List, was for us to be able to build it out. And then we used our relationship with them, with the MLSs, to build trust that we're building this, and will you work with us to accept it as a feed. So it's worked out really well. We tested it starting about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, in Pittsburgh and Cleveland as two
Yep.
launch markets. Where there's, as any new technology, it's like, here's version 1.0. Now we're going to 2.0. We've connected and mapped it with all of our marketing solutions. And really what it's giving us, we've worked within the framework of whether an MLS has clear cooperation rules or whatever their submission rules are. So
I know John Hidehouse very,
Yeah.
very well. He's a lifelong friend. He's a real visionary. And he first brought OcuCell to me about a year ago. And, they were really ahead of their time in coming to the assistance of organizations like yours. Hanna List, tell us how that's performing, and where do you see that going as far as over the next 6 months within the organization?
It's performing really well. I mean, it's changed. It's entering into Hanna List, which is our OcuCell, what we branded our OcuCell product, and then that feeds to the MLS. It's still changed because agents are, those who do input, or
Yeah.
admins, they're like, this is what we always use. So you got to do a little bit of an education. Actually, it's a simpler, easier input than most of the MLS inputs. It's allowing us to get the marketing solutions up and going. It's allowing us to also disclose very clearly to sellers, in our listing contract, here's our strategy. For the seller who does want more of a coming soon strategy, here's how we use it, and here's how we work with the MLSs to feed that. If the seller wants immediate ad, in the MLS right away, it feeds right away. So it really gives seller choice and an agent the ability to say, here's a marketing strategy that we think we should put in place for your home. We're seeing what's interesting is even if in the rules in some markets like might be 1 day that you
Yeah.
can market before it has to be in the MLS. Interesting, John, putting that traffic on our website. Brokers will appreciate this. The listings that are going in through Hanna List into our system with even 1 day of exposure or a weekend of exposure before the MLS, we're seeing 4 times as many listings
Wow.
or 4 times as many leads, I apologize, coming to the listing agent on that. We're seeing SEO increase. So the organic search through Google and others is increased because the point of origination is howardhanna.com, not an MLS. We're allowing, we're getting our buyers love it that are registered with us, that have their pre-approvals. We work in a day and age where we now list buyers. The buyer increase is saying, wait, we're going to see the Hanna listings first. We're gonna know about them. We're gonna know about your ecosystem, and that's increasing traffic on the other side. So, we had an incredible May, maybe especially in Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Maybe that was because we launched this, and now we're on a front-facing marketing side. That is, we said to every cooperative agent, we'll still work with you. Register on our site, and we'll tell you about we're not hiding the ball. These aren't exclusives. We're just trying to bring some leads and traffic back. The other thing
Well,
I'd
I
say is
think
that.
that's fascinating. Those are very interesting numbers.
And I
And
think the other thing is that the seller, this is the one thing that most people say, oh, you're hurting the seller. No, the seller, when you have a real dialogue about our industry, like I hear the one side of the argument. What about the other side of the argument, which is the buyer who's buying leads from somebody who's never seen the home, who doesn't know the value, who can't
yeah,
explain it other than the pictures? When you explain a seller that you put in your listing on Zillow or whomever, and that when they request information, I say this to sellers all the time, you hit that request for information, but who do you think's answering? And the seller goes, you, the listing agent. No. And sellers get upset because they're like, wait a minute, I'm hiring you to represent my house, my piece of the universe, but yet somebody who's never seen it, who could be 2 counties away, who could be, no offense, a brand new agent who's never sold in this price point, they're now representing my home to the marketplace. There's a little backlash of sellers. Sellers are like, wait a minute, I want my listing agent to be the one responding to take care of this, or an agent that I know who's seen the home. But we don't talk about that. Or on the flip side, we talk about, well, you're hiding days on market or list price or this. Well, what about, should we have a database of buyers that says how many homes have they made offers on? How many deals have they walked away from because they really aren't qualified? How many times have they blown up over a home inspection over GFI plugs because they're really not a real buyer? Where's the database where I can search, has this buyer been looking for a house for 2 years? And made, I think we frame, both sides frame an argument. Here's the argument, is that the listing agent wins the listing, should bring the market with a disclosed plan to the seller. Here's how I'm going to market your house. Let's be transparent. Here's who might answer calls. Here's who might answer questions. Here's how I use the MLS to bring the agents that have buyers to the table, as opposed to using sound bites and using words and using language to benefit one side or the other.
I think you're right. Hoby, on that note, and I think when you think about handle list and where you're heading down that path, that path is going to be absolutely fueled by the adoption of AI on a number of different levels that will assist those agents that are at that kitchen table securing those listings and the confidence of their client to market and sell their home, but also the confidence of potential future buyers and sellers that they are the ones who will be representing them. And the follow up done through AI sources, which I think are really the next 6 months in this industry, are going to be very interesting on how that matures and continues to mature. Tell us a little bit of where you see your organization embracing in a more robust manner AI.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of different levels. I think that we're using AI. We're looking at it right now for compliance at the first level, reviewing contracts, reviewing agreements, helping the agent. It's not going to replace the agent, but could from compliance, so many forms, so many agreements. We're working with a couple players in AI to look at the agreements and pinpoint, as opposed to just an admin. Was this initial? Did you capture this?
Yeah.
We think AI. We're looking at some obviously some CRM based marketing and propensity based marketing. About 2 years ago, we decided we were going to take at least 10 years of historical data from clients, and we have a data suite which isn't just brokerage, it's mortgage, title, insurance tied to that same seller or buyer, to be able to say to our agents, where's the puck going, per se. So the idea is, you wake up, you look at your CRM, and from propensity data, these are the people that you should be calling, because we're capturing the digital footprint. We're capturing that these are the reasons AI says this cadre of buyers is most likely to purchase in the next 6 months. They're your past client. Are you talking to them? Maybe it's because of mortgage rate. Maybe it's because we know that when they bought a house 5 years ago, AI is saying, well, one partner of the house was a doctor, one was a second-year attorney. AI is telling you, well, based upon if they've been staying at the same career path, their income just went up. That
Yeah.
maybe we're seeing that their propensity is that they probably have one or two kids they didn't when they applied for this mortgage. Should you reach out? Should you have a reason to call? Do they need something more? So I think that becomes a big play with AI. So compliance, where the data, who the consumers are, where they're going, making administrative tasks easier and some marketing easier. But that being said, there's still human touch. I mean, my daughter works for a large law firm in Manhattan, and they use AI, but she says to me that the partners will kill you if you don't review the AI,
Yeah.
because there's still mistakes in it, and they're doing big corporate deals that they just can't put it into the AI and replace them. That there is. So I think it's the same thing with our realtors. We have to be careful. Our industry has to be careful with AI. As we test it, we still have the human touch. We don't go too far gone. So
Absolutely. I personally believe that AI is going to be a great facilitator and augment the services of a great a realtor. Okay, um, because real estate professionals who understand they have to enhance their value. And in today's world, there's so much robust information that is out there and accessible, where AI can help them uh, parse this, and then, of course, relay it to their customers. So the future of AI is coming. One thing I will say, that I believe that with every real estate professional, I just spoke to a group of 125 top agents up in Buffalo, a very starved marketplace. Um, they're great people. And one of the things we left them, and I spoke up there with Alan Dalton, who is a iconic figure in our industry. Um, he made the point, and I think it's a great point, that in the world of AI today, there is no past clients. Everyone is your client. It's how you're cultivating them, because even though they may not transact with you over 10 or 11 years, it's the influence they have over their sphere of influence that may get you an opportunity that you don't have, and AI can enable that for a lot of real estate agents who are so um, inclined to get involved with that. You can't hand your business over to AI, because if you do, it'll walk out the door. Okay, it won't be done properly. Nothing is easy. Let me ask another question as we move towards the end here. Okay, um, you talk about your moment in time where brokers had the opportunity to possibly take back control, more control of the data. Um, that was kind of a missed opportunity, in my opinion, back in the day. And I know you've mentioned this about with other news sources about IDX and where we're headed with that. What are your thoughts on that right now?
I think that the industry, um, that includes having stakeholders at MLSs and so forth at the table.
Sure.
I think we, I think, well, I think a mistake we've made is we make a rule, and then we create like task forces to protect the rule, as opposed to looking and saying, should that rule be amended? Did that rule, was that, like, talk about IDX, that's from 2000. You
Yeah.
know, technology was vastly different. Distribution, the ability for brokers to control and distribute their tech. So does IDX need to be addressed in a way that faces what the stakeholders want today, or do we just keep that rule in place? So I think that I think it's interesting as an example, Cotality. I had a conversation with Pat Dodd, who's their new CEO, and they've come out with their BLX product. And I
Yes.
talked to him
Yeah.
about that. I hope Pat doesn't mind me saying this. I don't think it was incompetence, but Pat, when he came in, he came from the outside into the industry, looking at the MLS space, reading and listening to the arguments over the last year taking place, and said, "Well, why wouldn't we give something to the broker to distribute the data?" And he told me that originally his MLS group was like, "Well, you can't. That's just how the system's set up." And I think coming from outside the industry, being a little bit of a disruptor himself by nature, said, "Well, why is that the case?" I don't think he wants to put the MLSs out of business, but he's looking at, well, the broker does sit at the kitchen table. So, launching with Home Services and Keller Williams, and saying, "Hey, let's look at how we have a distribution method." Is, there are these pieces that MLSs are looking at and putting the moat around it and saying, "Oh my God, Cotality's doing this. We should be mad at Cotality." Cotality saying, "Wait, maybe the whole world needs to change, and maybe the broker, maybe we should be the center of a broker having the ability to distribute, and then where do MLSs come in as a B2B, and as opposed to, and I think that probably makes some executives in the MLS space nervous. I've found that there's a handful, obviously, that have been very progressive in the last, from MRED to Canopy to Real Tracks and some others that looking and saying, well, maybe we should be the first ones out there. It's not about building a national MLS, but look at the rules and talk to the members, talk to our brokers, and have maybe a different vision. So I think that's important. But because I think we either come together and coalesce with like what the playing field needs to look like today, or either somebody will make the decision for us on the outside, a third party, or so I just and we could get to a point where as the consolidation that we started off of this, I sort
Yeah.
of look at that and look at the size of the consolidation. Is that do you know, James Dwiggins ran around the country for the last year saying there's gonna be like 10 brokers left in the world. I don't know about that. But as you get bigger and if brokers organize the data, how important does that data become in terms of distribution? Can a brokerage firm make an independent decision that says, I'll send you my data, I'll organize it, I'll cooperate with you in some form of system, because we don't offer compensation anymore in the MLS. That's been taken away from us. Cooperation and compensation has been taken away by legally been taken away. So do brokers then have, here's my data, and if you want to put it on your website, here's the rules that are with it, but I'll share it with you in this capacity. Does that become more as the brokers get bigger? If there are only 10 brokers, what happens with their network of data of where they send to?
Well, you're making great points. I would hope we don't, and I know Jim, he's a great, wonderful guy, James, and a far thinker. Um, I hope that we don't come down to a small number of brokers
I don't
because,
think we will.
yeah, I don't think so either. I think what we are is, and I love your comment on this. We're on a quest. When I say we, every one of the power brokers, I rank the top 1,000, 2,000 power brokers since 1985. We were the first company to ever do that and continue to do it. My good friend Steve Murray and I have been doing this in cooperation since 1985. Now, Steve's no longer doing it. I'm still doing it. My company's still doing it. But every one of the organizations we talk to, including yours, I believe is on a quest to enhance their value. And it's the value that's going to set them apart. That value is providing an opportunity for their sales agents to conduct business, to provide a greater value for their customers, to earn a profit. And part of that is not being restricted with things like we can't do this. Okay.
Mhm.
The minute we say we can't do this, that lion really does come over the hill,
Yeah.
and will really eat our lunch. It's a matter of performing for the consumer. Now, closing thoughts. I have a couple of notes here, and then I'll let you get on with your busy day. You're the third generation of a CEO running your incredible company. Okay, I think you have about 15,500 sales associates. Something I'm not going to ask you to name every single one of them, but I'm sure you still send out birthday cards and things of this nature. So you're very much in touch with the people that hang their hat at your organization. You conducted more than 110,000 transactions. You're quite the player. Okay, where do you see your organization over the next year, 2, 3, as the industry continues to evolve?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. We challenge ourselves with that all the time. I think we're on a very focused path right now of starting with the footprint that we're in is how do we continue to grow share? I answer that question because we look at different competitors, and even we get pigeonholed in like, who is Howard Hanna? Are you a national company? Are you a franchise company? Not really, but we look at, we've got to be nimble in the local markets that we're in and improve and stay focused in leadership and what you just talked about. Not growth for growth's sake, but to make sure that you're creating a great environment for the consumer and for the agent and the people that work for you. So in that essence, we have to, companies that maybe choose to be just at a singular market, that are really strong and decide that they're going to work in that sense, like the LC family in Detroit, which we're in that market and they're a great company.
Yeah.
They're very focused there. We have to be very focused in Michigan. We can't alter that. We can't just think in growth for growth's sake. We have to make sure that we're in the Pittsburgh market, that we're not worried about growth in other areas, that we're being the best company in Pittsburgh for our agents and the consumers in Pittsburgh. There, you talk about consolidation. There's brokers like Anthony Lamacchia who continue to grow his business and has a passion for it. And I respect him as an industry friend that he's built his business there. However, we also think that we're a vehicle for growth for the person that says, I really want to continue taking the lead, continue growing my local market business, but be part of a vehicle that might be able to bring better technology to the table or cost savings or integration or add those essential services because they see them as a value to their client and their customer and their agents to grow their business. So we think we're an operational opportunity to continue to grow our company and our footprint. This summer we'll announce that 2 other significant acquisitions that take us into 2 new markets, sort of, as I say, beachhead markets, market leaders, number 1 market share players that are new markets for us, that I think those owners of those 2 specific companies, I think that they see us as a value, as a vehicle to continue to grow, and they want to partner with us in that sense. I think we'll see some things there. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, there will be more consolidation of like-minded brokers like ourselves. And we want to be part of that. There could be a strategic partnership with somebody that takes us to the West Coast or takes us beyond the footprint that we're on. But the nice thing as a family business, that we don't, the shareholders I answer to are my family, and they can be really, they can be
Yeah.
tough shareholders, without a doubt, but there's no mandate that we have to grow for growth's sake. There's a mandate of if it fits our playbook and our marketplace and the culture's aligned and we can continue to grow our brand, we can continue to bring good technology sources, the essential services, the consumer experience. That's where we want to be. And that's where our focus is. And, it'll come as it's necessary. That's just, we've been fortunate. We've never said we have to be in this market. And we've had bankers and financial analysts like, why aren't you in Florida? Why aren't you in Texas? Why aren't you in this market? Why, we'll get there if the right partner comes to play and the timing's right. But and it might be another 20 years because there's no timetable. Where we enjoy what we're doing, and we think Howard Hanna will be here doing that as a company and as an organization for some time.
Well, Hoby, you know what? You mentioned Anthony Lamacchia, one of the real rising stars of our industry. And I've been following their organization since they started about 8-9 years ago. Very interesting growth organization. How they are acquiring all sorts of relatively small organizations, and together they're a $4+ billion organization. Watching your organization grow in a very different methodology, you've become the home to a lot of really stellar regional brands. And I think as we bring this to a close, I can't wait to have you join us in September 30th at our CEO exchange. And I'm sure by then the industry will have changed dramatically, and a lot of great points for discussion by all of our attendees. I want to thank you. I want to thank your family for giving us this time. And I look forward to seeing everyone in your organization soon. Thanks for being part of this.
Thank you, John, and I'm humbled to be there in September, and that you've asked me. But it'll be a fun dialogue, and as today was. So thank you for your time, and thanks for all that you do for our industry.
Thank you. We really appreciate you.
Thanks.